Okay, 10th grade world history students. This is the new way that we're going to be doing our lessons. I'm going to have to record myself, and you guys are going to have to take it upon yourself to watch it. I'm really sorry that this is happening to you guys with the rotation of teachers, but I'm doing the best that I can to make sure that this information gets to you. Now, you guys have a test scheduled on Wednesday, and you are getting your test review today, or you should have gotten it yesterday, and hopefully you've already started on it, but if you haven't, that's okay. I'm actually going to go over the test review in this video for you. That way you are guaranteed to have the right information and you are prepared for the test. You may use this review on the test, so as you can see, I'm doing everything I possibly can to help you here. You just have to do your part, like by getting your work in and not wasting your time the whole class period watching videos or being on Instagram or doing whatever you are doing. Remember, you need world history to graduate. And it's an interesting subject. Maybe some of y'all don't like it, but it's fun. All right, so let's go over this test review. So you can see I have it here in front of me. You should get yours out, and this is your paper. You should get it out and have it in front of you. That way we can go through it together, okay? So the first part, this is going to go back to the very first part of the 6 weeks and before Christmas when we were talking about the Vikings and the Norse myths. Norse means like the Norsemen are the Viking men. So this is just a little bit about their gods. So let's go through it's asking you like, what are they the god of? So Thor is the god of thunder, right? Balder is the god of light. Odin is the father of all the gods, and specifically the Aesir gods. If you remember, there were different types of gods that lived in Asgard. There was 3 different types, and Odin was the father of Aesir gods, okay? And then Valhalla is their heaven and that the gods actually go to. Remember, I mean, not the gods, the people go to and the gods live in. So remember, the Viking warriors, they wanted to die in battle. That way they could go to Valhalla and then feast and party for the rest of their existence. Pretty cool mentality. I really like this religion. It's pretty interesting. I wish it was still around. Okay, so then the next question is, and this is the next thing we studied, right after the Vikings in that first week with Mr. Turok, I had him present on the Silk Road, and then you guys did a DBQ over it, which is a document-based question assignment. So this question is, what is a 4,000-mile-long trade route that stretches from China to the Mediterranean? And the answer to that is the Silk Road. That is a very long trade route. It goes all the way from China and it goes to Europe and the Mediterranean. Actually, it ends in Constantinople, or the city in Europe that becomes the richest part is Venice, if you remember that. All right, so name and describe the 5 pillars of Islam. Oh, 1 second, sorry about that. I had somebody come in the classroom. All right, so we're back to the 5 pillars of Islam. This I took directly from this reading. So if you have this reading, make sure that you're studying it, because all the tests, I created the test, it came directly from your assignments. Okay, so your first one is faith, the Shahada. So they have to declare faith in Allah. Remember, in Islam, the belief is there's only one God, and that is Allah. Muhammad is just the prophet. They do not worship him as a god. They see him as a prophet. They also see Jesus Christ as a prophet. So like, there is intermixing in these religions. Pillar 2 is prayer, which is the salat, and they have to pray 5 times a day, and they're supposed to pray towards Mecca. So when if you've seen pictures of a Muslim praying, like kneeling down and putting their forehead to the ground, they are doing that facing east from the United States towards Mecca. They're supposed to face Mecca. Then pillar 3 is the almsgiving, so they have to give to charity or the poor or the sick. The Christians do the same thing. Pillar 4 is fasting. And so they do this in the month of Ramadan, so they don't eat or drink from like when the sun is up. And Ramadan actually moves months throughout the year, so sometimes it's in the summer, which can make it really difficult because the days are long and they're not allowed to drink or eat anything all day long, and it's very hot. So it can be hard. But it's cleansing, and the fasting is supposed to like help you contemplate about God. Okay. Then there's the Hajj, which is the pilgrimage, and this is where the people go to Mecca to visit the Kaaba, which was the big black rectangular, the big black box that people prayed around. The box is where the meteorite used to be. Okay. And then number 6, there is a 6th pillar. I just want you to know the 5th, but there is the 6th pillar, and that's the jihad. But just know that's not in all sects. Okay, so we've got the 5: faith, prayer, almsgiving, fasting, and pilgrimage. All right, let's move on. Let me scroll down here. All right, so how is Abraham related to both Jews and Muslims? Well, he's considered the father of both the Jews and Muslims. Remember that Abraham, he couldn't have children when he was, at first, with his first wife, Sarah. They tried for a long time and they couldn't have children. So Sarah sends him to one of the servant women, and her name was, oh God, I'm just blanking out on her name. Starts with an H. Anyways, she has a child with him, and it's a first son. It's born out of wedlock. They're not married, but it is the first son, and his name is Ishmael. That then all of a sudden Sarah gets pregnant, and he has an illegitimate son named Isaac, meaning that he's born in marriage, and Isaac is considered the father of the Jews. So Abraham is like the grandfather of everybody. That's how they are related. All right, what is the holiest book in Islam, and what do they call their places of worship? It is the Quran, and they worship in mosques. Okay? Within Islam, is Muhammad seen as a god or a prophet? I think I just said that. He is seen as a prophet. They do not worship him like a god, the way that Christians worship Jesus Christ as a god. Muhammad is just a prophet. Okay? What are the 2 sects of Islam? So remember in the succession, like after Muhammad dies, there's a question as to who's going to take over the church or lead the religion. And there's going to be 2 sects that are born out of this. There's Sunni and Shia. The Sunni are the bigger group. There's 85% of Muslims around the world are Sunni, and the other 15% are Shia. There is another sect called Sufism, but Sufis are like, they're mystics. They're kind of like the monks of Islam, and there's very few of them. It's very rare. So I'm just going to have you learn about the 2 sects, which are Sunni and Shia. Okay? So define cultural diffusion. I'm asking you this question because we studied the Silk Road, or you were looking at the Silk Road, and there was a lot of trade and movement of ideas along the Silk Road. Spread of the religion, like Islam is going to spread through this area as well. Well, when there's trade and there's travel between 2 places, and people start to exchange languages and culture, and they trade goods that become a part of everyday life in another culture. If we have that, right? If you go to the mall, you can get like Chinese food or pizza, or Italian food, which is pizza. Well, kind of. You can get American food, you can get Mexican food. All of this is because people have moved here and brought their culture. This is called cultural diffusion. When aspects of a certain society get spread through trade and movement of people, it's called cultural diffusion. Okay? You should Google it and get a really good definition, but I hope that explained it to you. So the next question is, in the 14th century, the 1300s, what killed 1/3 of the European population? And that is the Black Plague. Okay? The bubonic plague. Next one, who led the Mongols to create one of the largest empires in all of history? That is Genghis Khan. The Mongols were incredible warriors and were highly skilled in battle, utilizing which animal? That is the horse. Remember, they were incredible riders. I pulled questions from this reading, so make sure that you do have it, the Mongols reading. They were incredible horsemen. They were able to stand while the horse was running. They would be standing on it and shooting arrows at the same time. This made them feared around the world. They were incredible horsemen. Mongolians to this day are incredible horsemen. All right. Define a khanate. that is a kingdom. It's like a small kingdom. So after Genghis Khan dies, he divides his empire into 4 pieces for his 4 sons, and each piece is called a khanate. So it's like a small little kingdom. The kingdom that's left in China is going to survive for a long time, and it's going to be led by Kublai Khan, who is Genghis Khan's grandson. And Kublai Khan's going to start a dynasty, and he's actually the one that Marco Polo is Marco Polo is going to eventually communicate with. All right, so describe how the Crusades made Venice the wealthiest and most powerful city in medieval Europe. So if you think about a map of Europe, Venice is kind of like the port to Europe. So you have the Silk Road, so you have China way over here, and the Silk Road, goes across the Mediterranean, goes across the Middle East. And then there's Constantinople, and in between Constantinople and Venice is the Greek Isles, but you can get through them just by ship. So it would end in Constantinople, the actual road. They would load ships up. They would then go to Venice, which was a port. And from Venice, it would make its way into Europe. So Venice becomes very, very rich because it's where all the goods are going through. So they get to tax it. They get first access to the best goods. So they're going to become very rich and very influential. The most richest city in Europe during this time period. And this is because of all the trade from the Silk Road. All right, next question. Describe the bubonic plague. What were the symptoms? How was it transmitted? How did it get to Europe? And what did the average medieval peasant think caused it? So the plague is a hemorrhagic fever. So it gives you really, really, really bad or really high fever. But you actually would get like these... and it still occurs in the world today. It just doesn't happen in the U.S. because we have really good sanitation. We're just hygienic. And the plague tends to spread in areas where there's a lot of trash, like where rats are living and eating the trash. Because remember, the plague comes from the fleas on the rats. It's not the rats themselves, it's the fleas that are living on the rats. And the virus or the bacteria itself actually, it lives in the flea's stomach, and then the flea will bite the human, and that's how the human gets it. So it gives you really, really high fever, and then you get these things called buboes on your body, and they look like massive, like purple, because they're full of blood and pus. They look like big sores, but they're massive, like they could be the size of a baseball. And from records, we know that they were very painful for people. If you can imagine having like a baseball-sized pimple that was full of blood and pus, and you have fever, that's what the bubonic plague was. It was a terrible, terrible disease. It really devastated people. So it's transmitted not from person to person, but from the fleas. Now there is some worry that there was transferring from like when the buboes would pop if people touched that, and then they would touch themselves, or they would get it on themselves. That you can transfer it that way, but it's not something that would be transmitted like a flu, like through your water, like the water particulates in your nose and your mouth and your eyes. It's harder to transmit than that. But because people in Europe at the time, they weren't that clean, and they're just living like in filth. It spread, and it spread pretty quickly. And it was devastating. It killed 1/3 of the population. It gets there via road, through the Silk Road. It's going to come through caravan. Ships will bring it as well, but it's mostly by road that it's going to get to Europe. So because everybody starts trading and there's all this movement of people and goods, obviously diseases are going to move as well. It's the same nowadays, right? We're all watching the coronavirus in China. Everybody's freaking out about people coming into the airports because it just takes one person to get off a plane, and then all of a sudden it can get spread to millions of people. That's what happened with the plague. Now, when people get it, in answer to this last question here, the average peasant, they're very, they're pretty ignorant, because the church had kept, in order to keep power, they only let certain people learn how to read and write. So they really kept a lot of people ignorant. So when the plague comes, they all say, we're being punished. This is God's wrath because we are sinners, and we're not living well enough, or whatever. They're being sin. They whatever. Catholics are always feeling guilty, so they blame God's wrath. They think God's punishing them. All right. Make sure that you have this filled out. You have it ready for the test, and you can have this good grade. Also, do not forget that I am giving you only till Wednesday, so that's tomorrow, to get this stuff done, to get all your missing work done. And then I'm going to have a admin person downstairs help me contact parents. Okay? All right. Get to work.